Hi all, my name is Haley Comet and welcome to my cosmic corner of the internet where we discuss all things astrology, and today all things Mars retrograde 2022, 2023 and you. What area of your life Mars retrograde is making you review through to the end of the year, kicking off next year. This is a long transit and it is really making you look at how it is that you stand up for yourself, what it is and how it is you are motivated, how it is that you deal with your anger, how it is that you funnel and get what it is that you want. These are all topics of review during this forthcoming Mars retrograde, as well as within the arena of your chart that it is transiting through. So we'll be breaking down what this means for all of us collectively, how we are reviewing the Mars-like topics of action and assertion and advocacy, as well as where in your chart it is concentrated, and furthermore, how you can co-create with this influence. Because I'll be forthright, Mars retrograde can be very frustrating. It can feel like a lot of doors are being closed in your face. You can feel really blocked. You can suffer from a lack of motivation. But also, if you lean into this influence and choose to flow with what the cosmos are bringing to the surface rather than force your own will, it can be an incredibly illuminating time. But before I dive into what this means collectively, as well as what this means for your chart, what degrees it's transiting through, the pre-retrograde period, the post-retrograde period, what aspects it makes, I do want to give a warm, heartfelt thank you to this video's sponsor, Crow Books, who is an independent publisher of books that specialize in divination, witchcraft, occult, astrology, like the forthcoming book that I'll be chatting with you today about. The complete book of spiritual astrology. You can grab it for pre-sale now. Due to our partnership, I was able to score an advanced copy, and when I tell you, my soul transcended. There was so many illuminations and aha moments that I got when I was looking through this book through the lens of interacting with my own chart. Like, I'm an astrologer. I've been familiar with my chart for years and years and years, but I think the very poetic way that he expresses some of the aspects and planets really just illuminated certain components to my chart. Some of the strengths of this book, because I would encourage this to anybody who wants to dive deeper into astrology, because it really is such a comprehensive guide through signs, houses, aspects, even generational planets through each of the elements. I found exceptionally enlightening, as well as just his style. He speaks in this very poetic way. I'm going to read you a couple of lines. A lot of the lines really stuck with me through the way that he described it, as well as described the spiritual opportunity of each of these placements. I am of the belief that we chose our birth chart for a reason, and I really loved how this book in particular chatted through some of the opportunities and the gifts and the beauty of these particular placements. And one line that I love that I want to share with you, because this is how eloquent per Henrik speaks.
A horoscope shows the tools an incarnated being has to work with. It is not necessarily a set of psychological complexes. Rather, it is your heavenly choir, the voices you have to use to tune into the cosmic song of oneness. Or it is your palette, the colors you have to paint your life, the colors you use to create, and the colors that can become that rainbow that will be the bridge between time and space and eternity.
Are you kidding me? He takes you through enlightenment through the elements. I found the aspects component really helpful. As someone who has a retrograde planet ruling their birth chart, I found the spiritual opportunity of retrograde planets incredibly enlightening. The artisticness, the eloquence of certain lines really stuck with me, as well as the brilliant analogies that really made me look at these placements in a new way. I want to share with you this line that he had on Mars retrograde, because this is so helpful for all of us as we move into Mars retrograde. This is referring to a natal placement, but I think a lot of us are going to feel this during this transit. So from his book, The Complete Book of Spiritual Astrology, Mars retrograde feels a bit like backing your car through the streets of life instead of driving with the hood in front. It is quite exhausting at times and you don't move very fast. Every now and then you just have to stop and wipe the sweat from your brow. And that is so important as we move into this Mars retrograde period, and just what an apt descriptor. I'm someone, you can tell if you watch my forecast or Magic Monday, I'm someone who loves to communicate the astrology through images and analogies. So that style within his book really resonated with me personally. And if you are someone who learns in that style as well, I recommend grabbing the pre-sale link. You will not regret it. I want to thank Crow Books for sponsoring this video and for getting this work out there. I feel like it's so needed and it's so impactful, and I'm so excited for you all to read it. And without further ado, let's dive into the video. Okay, loves, so Mars will be retrograde in the sign Gemini from October 30th, 2022 to January 12th, 2023. And you may be saying, if you happen to be watching this around the time I post it, Haley, Comet, that's quite in the future. Why are you warning us about this now? Because of those pesky shadow periods. Because due to the shadow period, Mars will be in its pre-retrograde or its post-retrograde shadow from September 3rd, 2022 to March 15th, 2023. That's a long time, right, that we're working with. And just so you know about shadow periods, what it means when I say that, that means that Mars will be going through degrees that it'll either return back to or that it's been there before. So it's not the time that's favorable for brand new initiatives, brand new starts, adding more to our plate, right? Because we're still in this retrograde territory, even if the planet isn't officially retrograde. So that's why I'm getting this video out when it is coming out, because I want to let you know, beginning of September, we're officially in this pre-retrograde shadow. And I want you to be conscious within the pre-retrograde, observing what themes come to the surface as we may be working with that as we go into the Mars retrograde period. So it'll be located within the Gemini sector of our chart, in between 8 to 25 degrees. And we'll break down what this means house by house for your chart. But firstly, I just want to give us a lay of the land. What can we expect? So it's concentrated in the sign Gemini. Gemini is the divine communicator, the divine messenger of the zodiac. And with Mars and Gemini, Mars is how it is that we get what we want, and Mars Gemini gets what it wants through words. It's a very witty, charming sort of influence. With Mars retrograde in Gemini, I would definitely be mindful around biting off more than you can chew when it comes to your words. If you happen to work in sales or marketing or social media, be very cautious around over-promising and under-delivering, because while Gemini is exquisite with its language and with its words, there can be energy around being a little distracted. It definitely feels like this retrograde, we could have a bit of shiny object syndrome, so like promising all of these things and then like losing interest or losing motivation, getting distracted by a new butterfly, getting distracted by a new project. I want you to be mindful with your language, which typically I wouldn't say with Mars retrograde, because Mars is the planet of action, not words, but it's answering to the planet of words. So be mindful around what it is that you verbally promise that you will do, because Mars retrograde will make you look at that. It'll also make you look at your energy levels and whether you are spread too thin. With that shiny object syndrome of Mars and Gemini, we can find we really have to look at if we are intellectually and mentally still engaged with the projects that we are attached to. Mars is how and what we are motivated by. With it in Gemini, for us to be able to exert our energy in things, there needs to be some sort of mental connection or mental desire to learn more within it. And you can find with this Mars retrograde that if there are certain projects or initiatives where it's like you're just not interested any longer, it'll review that. It'll also make you look at if you are spread too thin, if you don't have enough to give, because Gemini's interested in a lot of stuff, and sometimes we don't have the physical energy levels to get to everything, particularly when it's Mars retrograde and our energy isn't exactly moving as it typically does. Just to give some context around retrograde, just in case you're not familiar, it's not that the planet is actually moving backwards through the sky. That's impossible. But from our vantage point here on Earth, it appears as though it is due to the ecliptic. So it's essentially, if you think of direct planets as moving forward, retrograde planets are sort of moving back. So when it comes to our energy levels, we could sort of be victims to inertia, or just feeling more blocked, or just feeling more overwhelmed, especially with Mars Gemini wanting to do all of the things. Our energy isn't working as it's meant to, and you may find that you are just distracted by all of these different projects without the muscle or the motivation to be able to fulfill them to its fullest capacity. And this is heightened by Mars squaring Neptune through its journey. And Neptune is all glitter, it's all glamour, it's all image, no substance. So it's like with Mars retrograde, if something is too good to be true, it most likely is. People are going to be talking a big game during this influence, and it's so important that you are able to cut through the charm, cut through the glib, cut through the wit, and be able to really see the substance of the matter. Because with Mars square Neptune, I mean, this is not all glitter, this is gold. influence, right? And people are going to be talking a big game. They're going to be over promising this, that, and the other. Like, this isn't the time that I would, buy what people are selling, so to speak. And now purchases more so a Venus thing, but in terms of people wanting to get what they want from us, with the square to Neptune, I would be very, very cautious before signing on to something brand new or to believing this convincing pitch or this convincing offer. Really investigate, look a little deeper, because with Mars square Neptune, Neptune is the dream. It's like, oh, you're gonna have all these benefits, it's gonna be all these things, and then you get there and you're actually just walking door to door, selling textbooks and getting 5% commission. It's like, this is not all it was cracked up to be. So definitely being mindful around what people are selling you, how they're trying to manipulate you or getting their way with you. I don't want to scare anybody, but I just do want to let you know, I feel like scamming has been out of control for a while, but particularly with this influence, I feel like it could also be a big thing. So while Mars and Gemini can be charismatic, I want you to dig a little deeper. I want you to investigate on what's really being said, on people's true motivations, what they're trying to get from you, why it is that they're projecting this dream. And love, this is going to be your mantra. If it sounds too good to be true, it most likely is. And this really comes to, yes, people trying to sell you things, but I also want you to be mindful around what it is that you say that you will take on or what it is that you add to your plate. With the square to Neptune, it's this influence around, oh, it'll all work out. Oh, it's fine. Just add it. What's one more part-time job? What's one more project at work? Like, I want you to look at your tasks and realistically, -3. Like, a lot of times with Mars retrograde, we can feel like we're in a losing battle with time, especially around the time that it squares Neptune. Like, we can feel like there's never enough time to get everything done. There's never enough motivation. We could be distracted and making careless mistakes. I want you to -3 things. Rather than trying to do all the things, focus on doing a couple of things really, really well, okay? I want you to be so cautious. If there's something that seems so exciting, it's like, let me hold back. Do I have time within my schedule? Do I have space for this? Because it's going to be so tempting to spread yourself too thin, because with Mars square Neptune, people are talking a big game. We could be a little delusional a little bit about how much it is that we can realistically take on. And just keep in mind, with Mars retrograde, we're more drained, we're more exhausted, we're more distracted, we're more all over the place. Choose easy, simplify, streamline. You don't need to do all the things. Focus on doing a couple of things very, very well. This isn't the most discerning influence. This is the most detail-oriented influence. When we're burning out, running from thing to thing, we're going to make mistakes. That is a fact of life. And so I really want you, while mistakes are inevitable, I want you to really conserve your energy. Even if realistically you have 2 hours that you could volunteer for that PTA fundraiser, I want it. I simply would not. Like, with Mars retrograde, we need to be so cautious about how it is that we are exerting our energy and trying to be all the things, do all the things. Oh, but this looks so fun. Oh, this looks fun. Focus on what you've already taken on, one foot in front of the other.
Another theme that Mars retrograde will bring to the surface is if you have been sticking up for yourself. Mars retrograde will make you look within to really contemplate where it is that you feel powerless and where it is that you do not feel comfortable sticking up for yourself, getting what it is that you want. I do want to prep you that with Mars retrograde squaring Neptune, Neptune dissolves. So not only is it going to dissolve our motivation, it can also dissolve our own confidence, our own ability to go and get what it is that we want, or to stick up for ourselves if other people erode our boundaries or do something that we are not okay with. Particularly with the energy in Gemini, using our voice to defend ourselves or to advocate for ourselves is also going to be heightened here. But with the energy of retrograde being this energy of backwards, and again, just a reminder, it's not physically moving backwards, but in terms of degrees, it is. I think of retrogrades rather than a planet moving, forward, which is more external. It draws the lens inward. So with Mars retrograde, really look inward and wonder, are these people steamrolling me, or am I just not asserting myself? Am I not sticking up for my boundaries? Are great opportunities not coming to me, or am I just talking myself out of them? With this energy in Gemini, really contemplate how it is that you use language, yes, towards others, but also towards yourself. Do you talk yourself out of new opportunities before they happen? Do you bite your tongue when somebody erodes your boundaries? These are all avenues that will be explored. Also, Mars has to do with anger. So if you are someone where you just hold on and you hold on and you hold on and you never funnel that energy outward, Mars retrograde will make you look at that, as well as really looking inward to contemplate, where is it that I am still holding on to anger? Is this serving me? How do I deal with it?
And we have Saturn to help us, because even though Mars squares Neptune, which, is creating a lot of confusion as well as a lack of motivation, a lack of energy, the trine to Saturn is helping us being discerning. I do feel that a lot of people will be able to garner really important insights from this Mars retrograde. So like for some of you, especially the mutables, just saying this Mars retrograde, it's really going to impact the mutables. So my Geminis, my Virgos, my Sagittarians, my Pisces, it's really going to make you look at if you're spread too thin and what projects are no longer aligned. And with Mars trine Saturn, this is actually a helpful hand from Saturn. Typically Saturn's a little mean, but this is kind of Saturn holding out a hand, being like, hey, I know you wanted to join the choir, but realistically, we just can't take this on. So let's just say that we can't, okay? Let's just walk away. Let's free up our energy for other tasks. Like with Mars trine Saturn, it is helpful around honoring our commitments, staying with what it is that we have already dialed into, as well as honoring the boundaries for things that it's like, I want to, I'm interested in it, but I just can't take it on during this time. Because every time we get distracted, like shiny object, there can be a worthwhile project that we've been working on where it's like, you're almost to the finish line, just stay with this, focus your energy on this. I want you to think that your energy has been cut down to a third during this influence, okay? I want you to really limit how many tasks and how many responsibilities you can realistically get to day in and day out. Because I don't know about you guys, but I am so overly optimistic with my time. I'm like, yeah, I could film 10 videos and get out 3 recorded readings and have 12 consultations in a day. No problem. Like with Mars retrograde, be gentler with your schedule, be gentle with your mind, write everything down, strive to stay organized, and streamline. If something is no longer aligned for you mentally, if something sounds too good to be true, be okay with saying no, be okay with setting boundaries. The Mars trining Saturn will support with that, and you're gonna do great. So now I'm going to take it house by house to see where you are reviewing your energy, where it is that you're reviewing past conflicts, where it is that you are reviewing how you stand up for yourself, if you stand up for yourself. And for this, you'll want to look at your natal chart and see where you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini. So the Gemini symbol looks like this. So you'll want to find which house or houses holds 8 to 25 degrees Gemini. It's important to note that I do mention, as well as right below, suggested rising signs. This is based on whole sign house system. No sweat if it does not align with your rising sign. I simply put that in case you use whole sign or in case you don't know how to find where 8 to 25 degrees is. And I do want to highlight that for some charts, you may have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini spanning over a couple of houses. You'll want to listen to all of the readings and all of the houses where Mars will transit through. So any house that holds 8 to 25 degrees Gemini, you'll want to listen to the reading because that can be where this energy is concentrated. Last little disclaimer is that my neighbor is a musician and I think he's having band practice right now. So there might be some guitar that you can hear right now, but if anything, we've got a soundtrack. We've got a fun little Mars retrograde soundtrack. So without further ado, let's dive in. Mars retrograde through the houses. So if you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini within your first house of your astrological natal chart, this reading is for you. So first house is all about self-identity, and you need a pinky promise to me right now, my love, that you will not take on more to your plate. This can be a time where you feel like you are being run ragged. Many who have this would be a Gemini rising. And for anybody who has mutable angles, this is not the time to add more to your plate. This is a time to look at what you can tie up, what you can free up, how you can streamline your energy. This is not my analogy, but I think this is helpful. I can't remember where exactly I read this, but basically I want you to think that when you go through a day, you have 10 apples, right? And it's like you have that meeting at work, you give 1 apple. Like every one of your tasks gives an apple. I want you to cut the amount of apples you typically have in half, because right now you are looking at how it is that your energy is concentrated and if it is serving you, and if you are able to put energy towards what it is that you are truly interested in. So during this transit, I want you to really do less, try easy, cut back. And for some of you, first house does have to do with our workouts, particularly for the purpose of our physical appearance. And with Mars retrograde, you might be in part of an intense training regimen, but I want you to be gentle with yourself. Don't push yourself too hard. Mars retrograde can bring to the surface where it is that you've been overexerting yourself, to a physical level. Maybe you want to look one way aesthetically, super muscly or whatever, and you've been pushing yourself too far and comparing yourself to unrealistic ideals with this squaring Neptune in Pisces. It is important with Mars retrograde that you are motivated to be the best version of yourself and not comparing yourself to what is being sold to you or what is out there. And I do think, because Neptune is most likely in your 10th house if this is in your first house, and with Neptune in the 10th, there can be certain dreams or idealization of your career, and with it squaring Mars, there can be a feeling, if I only looked like this, if I only did all these things, then I'd be able to achieve that. It's really important that you ground down in what is real and what you can realistically take on during this time. So often the career paths and the celebrities that we idolize, it's that's not real. Neptune is all about glitter and Photoshop and all of these things, and you could be overexerting yourself in this attempt to try to live up to this ideal that was never real in the first place. So I wanted to mention that you are more susceptible to this energy than other signs, so err on the side of ease. Do be mindful around how it is that you stick up for yourself during this influence. For some of you, if you haven't been, Mars retrograde can bring up conflicts from in the past when you really need to learn how to advocate for yourself. You need to learn how to assert yourself if you found that you haven't been able to use your voice. Like Mars in Gemini, it does speak to our voice and how it is that we use it, and particularly how it is that we use it to defend ourselves. And it's important that with Mars retrograde, if you feel like you've let things slide and you haven't been able to assert yourself, there can be an opportunity here to be able to believe in yourself enough to stand up for yourself to get what it is that you want. Not the time I would take on more, but I would be concerned on finishing off projects from the past, initiatives from the past, in order to free up more energy. And as well as for those who identify with always being the one who's always going and being busy, during this influence, you can reach a burnout. You can reach a burnout trying to be everything to everybody. And for some of you who have an attachment around being the one who, I can do it, just give it to me, I can do it. With Mars retrograde, it's going to bring to the surface how unsustainable that is. And with the trine to Saturn in your 9th, it's really important that you free up your energy for the big picture projects that generally mean something to you. That might take longer, sure, but that means something to you, right? And it's if we say yes to everything that looks shiny and exciting, we don't have the space and the energy to really dial in and attune to our craft day in and day out and get the results that, yes, might take a year or two longer than the quick stuff, right? The glittery Neptune stuff, but it's going to be so much more intrinsically fulfilling. So really important to check in with your motivations, check in with your energy levels. Are you exerting energy towards the projects that really mean something to you? Are you abandoning what means something to you in pursuit of these glittery, shiny projects that are catching your attention? Are you attached to being the one who's always doing things? I'm always busy, you can give it to me. Because with Mars retrograde, it's going to make you look at how it is that you use your energy and how it is that you want to be known as a Mars-like person, which Mars-like people are go-getters and always busy. And it's more busy doesn't equal more successful. And that's important for you to know with Neptune in your 10th house. And it's really important to align to, okay, what really means something to me, and am I putting my energy towards that within my daily life? I also do want to highlight, for some of you, retrograde does speak to energy of the past. So for some of you, could find that you start getting into exercise that you used to be into within the past, or you could even go back to a particular, aesthetic or something of the nature that you were interested in the past. So love, if you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini within your second house, you may potentially be a Taurus rising, not always though. So just go by which house or houses you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini. So for you, my love, this is coming for your money, money, money. And with Mars in the second house for a long time, you can find that you are having more conflicts about money. This influence can bring up certain beefs you thought you squashed about money coming up to the forefront. And where Mars is transiting, we put a lot of energy into. And so you can find that you are just hustling and hustling. And I mean, you have Saturn in the 10th house. So you've been working really hard. You have a lot of pressure on you. You could have a boss or an authority figure who's been putting a lot of pressure on you. And with Mars in the second house, you could just be feeling like you have to just constantly be earning in order to keep going. And I mean, I guess that is the nature of life. But with Mars retrograde, it might slow some of that energy down. But if you've been overexerting yourself, like if you've been working overtime every single week thinking, just got to make partner, or you've been taking on way too many consultations, like I can do it. More business equals more better, more money equals more better. With Mars retrograde, it's really going to make you review that. It's going to make you review that. And, you know, money is obviously something we need to consistently be coming in order to achieve our goals. But what I want you to be mindful of is deals that come in that are too good to be true. So it's like you've been working hard at your career, chipping. And then with square to Neptune in Pisces, it's like something comes along, an offer comes along where it's like, you won't have to work. You can just chill and relax, and you're gonna make millions, and it's get rich quick. And then you're like, oh, okay, and you abandon what it is that you've been working on, because Saturn is delayed gratification, and Neptune is all promise and no delivery. So this isn't the time, love, that I would take on a new job offer. It is a time that I would look at how it is that you are spending your money, because for some of you, if your spending has gotten out of control, this can be a really great time to really look at your impulses around spending. So it's like whenever you're sad, do you go out and buy something to feel better? Maybe if you can look at your budget, you wouldn't feel this rush around always gotta be making more. It's not enough. Because Mars retrograde is asking you to slow down a little bit and think a little bit more introspectively around, okay, how much am I bringing in? How much is going out? What can I cut back on? There can be expenses that come up from the past, fights about money that come up from the past. Stay focused on your long-term goals, right? Like with Saturn in the 10th, like it's so important during this time that you stay focused on making sure your money is working for you, staying focused at the big prize at the end rather than these distracting offers pulling you left and right. And I also want to highlight for some of you, because second house beyond just money and finances, it's also value and self-esteem. And so for some of you, you can be trying to prove yourself a lot. And that's why you're working overtime, and that's why you're going above and beyond, is because there can be these intrinsic feelings that you are not enough and that you need to do that. And with Mars retrograde, it's making you realize that this isn't sustainable, working as hard as you have been for money, or it's not sustainable to be constantly going above and beyond, trying to take on more and more. Like our body has limits, and Mars retrograde makes us realize that. And I want you to realize that you have value. You have value just in what it is that you do. You don't need to prove that to people. It's great to want to do a good job. It's great to, want to build a project to completion. You have Saturn in your 10th house. But if you are consistently putting money over your physical body and like what it is that you need, Mars retrograde is going to make you look at that. It's going to make you look at your spending, how it is that you could be spending more mindfully. Expenses from the past, it can come back. And I would just really be mindful if you are impulsively spending money, like with Mars in the second house, we might be more apt to want to make it, but we're apt to spend it as well. So just look at those areas of your life through a more introspective lens. So love, if you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini concentrated within your third house, this message is for you. You may potentially be Aries rising, not always though, so simply go by the house or houses where you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini to see some potential themes that could come to the surface. So for you, okay, so here's the thing, no fear at all, but before we go into this period, I really want you to get your engine checked, get your oil checked. If you drive a car, check it out. check it out, okay? This isn't the time where it's like the check engine light has been on for months and you're just like, one day it'll turn off, right? Problems can fester during Mars retrograde. You know, astrology whispers and then it screams. So it is important during this influence that you are proactive when it comes to your short-term journeys or things of the nature, as well as with road rage. People can be more aggressive on the road. Just really seek to be as careful and as safe as possible when driving. To a larger extent though, this speaks to communication and it speaks to social media. You can get more beef, honestly, on social media during this time, or beef from the past on social media can sort of rear its ugly head. I would definitely be mindful on any Twitter fingers or anything that you say during this influence can sort of come back to get you. So like if you are a creator and people are always saying mean things on your videos or on your creations, it's sort of influence where you like want to reply back and be like, ugh, but really conserve your energy. Like with Mars retrograde in the sector, it's going to look at where your energy is leaking out, particularly on social media. So my love, whether it's fighting back with people on social media or if you've just been spending a lot of your time on social media, Mars retrograde is going to make you look at that. It's really going to make you look at your energy and how it's being exerted. For some of you, this can indicate certain conflicts from the past with siblings. For some of you, you may need to stand up for yourself to a sibling. If you've had any beef with neighbors or people you live around you, whether from the past or more recent, Mars retrograde can make you look at that. You can find that people around you are a little more tense. People on the road, people in your neighborhood, people on social media. You're like, okay, protect your peace, my love. Like, just really important not to give into impulses, to snap back, to fire back, because third house is our mind. It's our communication. So even off the gram, even off the internet, it's also just like how we are living life. So you can find you're more impulsive. Like someone says something to you and you're just like, meh, meh. You can notice you're more angry. Like within your mental space, you're just kind of a little more angry, and you don't need to demonize those feelings. But I do want you to find something productive that you can put it into, because Mars is what it is we're putting a lot of energy into, and third house is the mind. So it just feels like you have a lot of energy during this time, and it's like it needs somewhere to go, because oftentimes this can be linked with more feelings of just sort of like stress or anxiety, just because your mind can feel so busy thinking all these things. So definitely recommend doing something physical to sort of just like ground you down throughout this influence. As well as if you are someone who goes to therapy or anything of that nature, I would definitely make that a priority during this influence, just with Neptune in your 12th, most likely, if you have Mars transiting your 3rd. This can be an influence where it's like you're not dealing with stuff you need to be dealing with, and that's why you're snapping back. That's why you're so angry with yourself and others. So this could be a very helpful time to really look at how it is that you are talking to yourself, how it is that you are talking to others. For some, you could be craving like sort of a redo when it comes to your social media presence, how it is that you communicate. And I really want you to align yourself with your long-term goals with the Mars trining Saturn within your 11th house. Like, I want you to consider, would me in 12 years snap back on Twitter to this person? Maybe not. Would me in 12 years fight with my sister for hours? Maybe not. Like, it is important that you are being mindful of your impulses, your desire to want to stand up for yourself. And with trining Saturn in 11th house, think of the higher version of yourself, the person you want to be in the future, as well as it would be great to sort of like connect with individuals within your community. Again, no impulse, fighting back or anything of nature, but it can be helpful and grounding to be around people who do inspire you and don't really bring out this Twitter finger impulse, want to snap back or to defend yourself. And I would also just recommend try not to escape or run from things or numb yourself out. For some of you, you can be using social media to numb out or not deal with stuff. This can be helpful for journaling. Like, I want you to strive to see things head on, just with it squaring Neptune, which is in the hidden house. Like, you could just find some of these impulsive feelings or this anger or these things that you do without really thinking about it can be stemming from certain things that you are running from or trying to dull the noise within your mind. So I want you to strive to look at those things head on, take on less For some of you who work in sales, social media, marketing, a lot of digital careers are third house based. This could be a time where there can be certain mistakes that are made within your career, or things that you glossed over or didn't totally see. So I would definitely err on the side of caution when it comes to any sort of message that you transmit during this time, because Mars retrograde is a review. Definitely take on less when it comes to these things. If you are a social media creator and you want to launch a new series, I would use this time to just sort of finish off the series you have. Think about the new way that you want to debut or share content, but it's not the time I would launch on something new. You can find that you're spread too thin and distracted. So if you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini within your 4th house, this reading is for you. You may potentially be a Pisces rising, not always though. So I want you to go by where in your chart you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini. Okay, so for you, this energy is concentrated around home and family. So if there's been beef with past roommates, with family members, that beef might come up to the surface during this influence. You thought you squashed the beef, but now your mom's mad. Or you thought you settled it with your landlord, but no, he swears that there's these mysterious repairs. You can expect more conflict here. And it can be conflict from the past, as well as making a review. Are you advocating for yourself? Like, if your landlord is steamrolling you, like, I would definitely during this time look to what protections can be enabled to you. Definitely take this time to advocate for yourself. And if you have Mars in the 4th, you most likely have Neptune in the 1st. And the thing about Neptune is that it can make us more aligned with the universe, which is amazing, but there could be this energy around the universe will take care of it. I don't need to. And that's true in many cases, but maybe not here. Like, if you have not been advocating for yourself when it comes to your home, if you've been letting your roommates overpower you, your friends erode, or your family erode your boundaries, your landlord make up these mysterious dings in your security deposit, this can be an influence where you finally want to stand up for yourself, where you finally have to come within to be able to be like, no, that's not going to work for me. It needs to be this way. You are reviewing home for you. And this wouldn't be a time that I would necessarily move. Like, with Mars retrograde in the 4th house, you could just feel burnt out. Truly, if you have this, you're most likely Pisces rising, not always though. But if you do have mutable signs on the angles, if your IC is Gemini, take on less, do less. Like, if you do have to move during this time, it could be frustrating, it could be exhausting, it could be draining. There could be all sorts of fights and battles with the moving company. It could just be a really frustrating process. And with this influence, you could also find you're kind of just more angry, because 4th house speaks to our emotional state. So you can find you're more angry, people you live with are more angry, your family's more angry. And there's nothing wrong with anger. I would just definitely strive to find avenues that you could sort of put that, because anger can be powerful. It's fuel, it's motivation, right? And Mars retrograde is making us look at anger and how it is what we deal with it. So I do want you to strive to put it towards things, whether it's, like working out more, or putting it towards, a project that you want to finish up, rather than letting it fester and then feeling guilty because you're angry. I want you to use that as fuel, because you can find you're a little bit more incensed to an internal level. There can also be certain experiences within the home of needing repairs or anything of that nature. Home might not necessarily be a very restful place for you to be right now. You are being asked to take a more active role, as well as look at how is your energy being kind of put towards, like, do you feel like you're putting too much energy towards your family, or not putting enough energy towards your family? Have you put enough energy to make your house a home? Have you decorated? Have you fixed these repairs? This isn't a time, like, let's say your toilet has been flushing weirdly for months and months and months. This isn't a time that you should be like, oh, it'll be fine, I don't know what's happening. Like, Mars retrograde, certain issues that we've ignored, they could sort of fester. So definitely use this energy to review kind of loose ends around the home, things that need repairs, things that maybe need decorating. I mean, Mars is the most aesthetically driven, but it does ask for us to review if we're putting energy towards making our home a place that feels safe and nurturing for us to be. And also try not to demonize your anger. Maybe journal. With Mars and Gemini, you can find journaling helps you clarify some of the anger that you're feeling. So love, if you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini within your 5th house, this reading is for you. You may potentially be in Aquarius rising, not always though. So I want you to go by which house or houses you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini. Okay, you ready for this? Are you sitting down? Because here's the thing. A fling or two from the past could come back, okay? Okay, I said it. And I don't mean they're gonna come back and you guys are gonna run off into the sunset and live happily ever after, but you could run into them. You could definitely hear from them. And I'm not talking like long-term, an ex from the past, you know, I'm talking like a fling, a situationship could come back. This is also a theme of Mars and it's a theme of the 5th house. So, a situationship from the past could come back. Not saying all that glitters is gold. Mars squares Neptune, right? They could be talking a big game. They could be swearing it's different this time. But with that Saturn in your 1st house, like, I mean, your chart has been under a lot of pressure. So it's like, you might not necessarily be like, I don't have time to get back with this situationship, because with Saturn transiting your 1st house, you've had to be the rock for a lot of people. You've had to get very responsible and very diligent. So this person will be coming back and you're like, please. And I want you to keep your standards high. Like, you have Saturn in the 1st house and not all that glitters is gold, especially not this individual. So it doesn't feel like a very long lasting connection. You could just hear from them, even like hear some news about them from the past and be like, oh, okay. And I always think of retrogrades, you know, it's not that when someone comes back, we need to run off into their arms, but I do want you to take a beat to reflect. Why did I run into Trisha? Like, what did I learn about myself when I was hooking up with her? Or like, what came to the surface during that situationship? How did I learn about my own boundaries and that? Like, I don't think of it as a sign you're meant to be there with this person, but I do think when someone pops up from the past during a retrograde, it's trying to like bring a message to you, if that makes sense. Like, it's not saying run off with this person. It's trying to say, remember what your values were like in this connection? Remember what you learned about yourself in this connection? That could be part of your Mars retrograde story. This won't be the story for every single person. For some of you, if you're in a situationship or you're in sort of a fling, dating-like situation, this could be sort of like poop or get off the pot, so to speak, time. Like, it's sort of an energy around, okay, are we doing this or not? Because I don't have the energy to just wait around. And it's not the time I would necessarily start dating someone new. Just with Mars retrograde, we sort of could have to sort of review what it is that we're looking for when it comes to dating. And for some of you, you can be dealing with someone who's a little indecisive. Like, Gemini is the energy of 2. So if you've been dealing with someone who's like two-faced or two-sided, or you just don't know what to expect, this Mars retrograde is going to really make you look at this person and like really look at if you want to be spending time with this person. Like, it's all great if it's fun, like that's the 5th house, but with Saturn in the 1st house, you are being asked to keep your standards high during this time. And with Mars retrograde, if someone's been inconsistent or almost feels that they're two-faced, like this energy where it's like, I deserve better, you know? Mars retrograde will have you tie up that loose end. For my creative loves, this is the house of creativity, of self-expression. So this could be a time that you get a burst of motivation to be able to finish a past project. Like I said, with Mars Gemini, like you could get ideas for new projects, but this wouldn't be the time I would launch them. Definitely write them down. Like, it's not that it's cursed if it comes up during a retrograde, just not the time I would put it out into the world, because you could find you're over-exerted. For some of you, you're exerting this sort of thoughtful energy around what it is that you do for recreation, what it is that you do for fun. Mars retrograde will make you look at that. Any of my gamblers or anyone who's been partying a lot, Mars retrograde is going to make you cut down. Okay, it's going to make you look at your impulses and like what it is that you do for fun, and if it's sustainable and if it's serving you. And for some of you, it might not be. So, you know, invite in those lessons at this time. And I also want to highlight for any of you who have children with Mars retrograde, you can be looking at how it is that you express anger or discipline, or how it is that you like advocate for yourself to your children. So like if you're someone who's more soft-spoken with your children, this influence could like really bring to the surface your need to, you know, assert yourself. Or if you're on the other side and you've been, you know, extra angry with your children, it can make you review, okay, how can we express our anger, frustration in more healthy ways. So love, if you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini within the 6th house of your natal chart, this reading is for you. You may potentially be a Capricorn rising, not always though. So I want you to go by which house or houses you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini. So this influence, buckle up, do less, take on less, volunteer for less, do less. I'm telling you right now, because your schedule is going to make it so unsustainable. Like, you are someone where you typically can do it all. And like with Mars retrograde, you have to get real comfy with telling people no. Like, you have to really get comfortable telling your coworkers, I can't take that on. You have to get really comfortable with telling people, no, I can't volunteer with that. I can't help with that. Because with Mars retrograde in Gemini, you've been doing too much. And this is almost an energy that makes you stop and be like, okay, all right, what's gotten out of control? What's my energy level like? Why am I so drained? Why am I so exhausted? For some of you, this won't be a message for everybody. And I never want to incite any fear with these readings. But if you are someone where you have been overexerting yourself consistently, like I'm talking only living off caffeine, pushing yourself to the brink every single time, overworking, Mars retrograde is going to make you sort of stop in your tracks. And, you know, the universe whispers before it screams, but it could be a time where the mental or physical burnout reaches such a peak that you physically cannot keep going. So I want you to listen to the whispers before the screams. Do less, take on less, outsource, find people to help you with things, because what it's showing to you is that you cannot keep continuing at the pace that you've been continuing. And you need to really be discerning with what and who and what projects you are putting your energy towards. Not to say this won't be a productive, fruitful time. You have Mars in 6th house, trining Saturn in the 2nd. But it is a time that you are being asked to really streamline your efforts. Like, is it profitable to be doing all of the busy work that you're doing? Like, maybe for some of you, you could start to contemplate, okay, do I need an assistant? Can I outsource these particular projects? Busyness does not equal business. Like, you're being asked to look at the big picture and like really look at, okay, what's really bringing in profit? Do I need to cut out this part-time job? Do I need to rebudget in order to free up more of my energy? I cannot do it all. I cannot do it all and be everything to everybody. What can I cut back on? And 6th house is health, as I sort of highlighted. So for some people, you can get back into exercise routine that you used to appreciate. Like, if you're not feeling the burnout side of this, it can be energy around, why am I always drained? Why do I not have energy to do all my tasks? And for some of you, you can be looking at like health tweaks around, okay, maybe I'd feel more energized if I, woke up, ate a proper meal, worked out, drank more water, like looking at those tweaks in order to support our body through all of the tasks. And I do want to let you know, 6th house is coworkers. So if there's been a beef with a coworker, just saying, that could come up, or you could have to review. Are you advocating for yourself with your coworkers? Are you standing up for yourself? Are you telling Marsha, no, I cannot do your work for you. You need to do this. No, you need to help me with this. It'll bring that to the surface, as well as bring up any like simmering tensions within connections. This influence, where it's hitting within your chart, because if you have this here, you most likely have Neptune in the 3rd, and it feels like you could be telling people what they want to hear, and you're taking the brunt of it. Like, it feels like this energy where it's like, yeah, I can take that on. And then you're like crying on the inside because you know you're gonna be up till 3 a.m. finishing it for this person. Have boundaries. Say, I cannot take that on. This is your phrase. I do not have bandwidth for that. And also, because I want you to take on less during this influence, because it's not uncommon that during this time, projects from the past that you thought you finished, like at work, rear their ugly head again. Like, retrograde does deal with things from the past, and it's going to look at how it is that you physically exert your energy day to day. And so just being really cautious when it comes to mistakes. Move a little slower than you typically would. Mars and Gemini wants to go fast and do all the things. Move a little slower, double check, reread. You have Neptune in the 3rd. This is language. So it's like you might not be seeing things totally clear, and you're making silly mistakes. So you're going to have to redo. And this is why I'm saying, take on less, take on less. You can really lean into the energy of retrograde. Review. rewrite, reread, like be really mindful when it comes to communications with Neptune in third house, because whether it's you're overpromising or you're missing mistakes, there can be certain communication that's not stellar during this time. So being mindful with what it is that you're putting your energy towards. So if you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini within the 7th house of your astrological natal chart, this reading is for you. You may be a Sagittarius rising, not always so. So simply go by the reading of which house or houses you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini located within. Okay, Pinky promised me one thing. Pinky promised me, because a lot of you have Sagittarius on the descendant. And with my mutables, this is not the time to take on more. Because here's the thing, mutables, and that's Geminis, Virgos, Sagittarians, Pisces, they are the people who are shapeshifters. They can take on a lot, but not during Mars retrograde. It's really coming for you guys and how it is that you are exerting your energy. And the other Pinky promise is that this is not the time I would enter a new relationship, okay? With Mars square Neptune, someone could be telling you everything you want to hear. And for some of you, this might be an ex, like an ex coming back. And I'm not the YouTuber where it's like, the divine reunion is coming. No, this does not feel like a divine reunion. This feels like running into someone who was trash then and trash now. Just kidding. Sorry, I'm being a little aggressive. But with Mars square Neptune, like just being really cautious of the people that you connect with. And this could be business partners from the past, exes from the past, friends from the past. People could be talking a big game, telling you everything you want to hear, and you most likely have Neptune in the 4th right now, so you're a little bit more susceptible. You're a little more susceptible to their game. So this isn't the time that I would believe what people are selling you or buy what people are selling you. And this also speaks to like salespeople, clients, like be more discerning, okay, during this time, and be mindful before taking more on your plate. So be mindful when it comes to offers and contracts that come to you at this time. Finishing things from the past is more encouraged than starting new things. So like a client, if a client from the past comes back, I'm not saying be like, no, you're trying to manipulate me. Like definitely hear them out, but definitely use logic. Don't believe everything that they're selling. But this can be a time like you reunite with a business partner, you reunite with a client, you reunite with an ex. Just be mindful around that one, just because, you know, Mars retrograde tends to bring people from the past up. And I highlighted this earlier within the 5th house reading, but I also want to share it here because both these houses have to do with connections. And oftentimes when we hear that people are coming back, we think, oh my gosh, they're coming back. That means we're meant to be together forever. And that's not the case. And it's not that Mars is even very love-y. Mars is the more physical parts of connection. With Mars retrograde within the sector, it's this review around the energy that you've exerted in relationships and if it's been sort of sustainable. So if someone comes back, rather than being like, oh my gosh, they're back, let's run off into the distance forever, I want you to really reflect, what is it that I need to learn about this person? What is it that I learned about this person, about myself? Because retrogrades do take the lens inward. So rather than giving this person all the power, like, oh, this person's meant to be, that's why I ran into them at the grocery store, review. How did this person make me feel? Yeah, I always did feel like I was giving more than I was getting from them. Or, oh yeah, they did teach me that I liked this thing, and I still do that now in my connections. Like I do want you to review what that person taught you about yourself, about your motivations, about other Mars topics, but I don't want you to run off with them into the sunset. For some, maybe, and there might be like a certain chemistry that's drawing you to that individual, but I would just be discerning. If you meet someone new, not the best time to initiate a connection. I've also found sometimes during Mars retrograde, people that we date could remind us of individuals from the past that we've dated, repeating of certain cycles or patterns. So just be extra discerning when it comes to that. I also want to highlight, with Mars retrograde in your 7th house, you could just be experiencing more conflict with people, like straight up, whether it is angry clients, angry friends, angry exes. People could just be more angry and you're like, what did I do? Just know this sort of an angry vibe, angry fall, angry winter.
Since Mars is the planet of conflict, you can find in your current relationships, your current partnerships, there can be more fights, there can be more conflict. in, intimate partnerships. If there was a fight from the past, that could sort of come back up to the surface. And I always think during retrogrades, if something's coming to the surface, really look to see how you can tie up loose ends. Like, we think retrograde, we think the world's going to end, but it's really not that at all. It brings to the surface certain suppressed conflicts or suppressed fights where it's like, no, we need to talk about this. We need to really see if we can put this issue to bed entirely. So during this transit, if a fight comes to the surface that is recurring within your relationship, I really want you to use communication, the energies in Gemini, to see if you can settle this argument once and for all, as well as really look for opportunities around how you can share your anger or your frustration with your partner in a healthy, constructive way. If you are someone where you don't voice what's upsetting you and you don't voice what you're angry about, Mars retrograde can sort of be this pressure cooker energy where you just get more and more frustrated. And don't demonize your anger. You're allowed to stick up for yourself within your connection. Just look for healthy, sustainable ways to deal with it. Fighting in a relationship is not a bad thing. Obviously, physical fighting is, but I mean, arguing and disagreements are actually very healthy. It's about how you deal with it. And what's not healthy is you holding on and holding on and holding on and just glossing over and glossing over and glossing over. Mars retrograde will bring these issues up to the surface for a review.
So if you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini within your 8th house, this reading is for you. You may potentially be a Scorpio rising, not always though. So I want you to go by the reading of which house or houses you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini. Okay, so this is going through your 8th house. And many of you have this, are Scorpio rising, so it's like you are no stranger to the intensity, right? You are no stranger to the shadow parts of life. And with Mars retrograde in this house, you may need to review your shadow. The things that you run from or are not dealing with, or where your impulses come from. Some of you who have this, there can be squabbles from the past around alimony, child support, lawsuits coming back up, fights with family around those sort of themes. I do want to say there could be fights with your spouse around income, things of the nature. This square is Neptune in the 5th house, so this is not the time that I would start an illicit affair or anything of that nature. It definitely can be more passionate in your relationship and your connection, but it's not the time that I would look elsewhere or anything of that nature. Not the time I would do that at all, and certainly resist temptation if you feel that call. Like, Neptune is glittery. It seems like it's going to solve all your problems. With Mars in the 8th house, there can be more fights with your spouse or your partner around money, but that doesn't mean you need to look elsewhere. And beyond just our spouse, there can be more fights about money elsewhere. If you work with other people's money or something of the nature, there can be more fights or squabbles around that. You may need to review investments, where it is that your money is being placed. If that is serving you, there can be certain lingering fights with an accountant or anyone who manages your money. For some of you, you are sort of having to review your impulses, and if it's sort of coming from a shadowy place. And what I mean by that is 8th house is an intense house, has to do with death and like what's beneath the surface, how it is that we merge, whether it's merge bank accounts with our spouse, merge with the afterlife via death. It's the house of surrender. And with Mars retrograde, there's certain scenarios in your life that are asking you to surrender, and you are frustrated. You are digging your claws in tighter. You're like, no, this needs to work out. I need it to be like this. Whether you're trying to control your spouse, control your business partner, control the situation. Your control issues are coming up, and for some of you, you can be lashing out. You can be sort of acting from the shadowy place in that, like trying to hold on to control so tightly that you are being a little bit more disruptive, that you are being a little bit more intense. You could be kind of reverting to certain, knee-jerk ways of dealing from the past. Because as I highlighted, really being mindful when it comes to temptations, whether it's temptations to be with somebody else, or even if you are single. Like with Neptune in the 5th, things could be hot and passionate, but it might not be what's best for you, particularly if you're using that sort of intimacy to try to avoid certain things that you don't want to deal with. And Neptune in the 5th, you can also find that you're partying more or gambling more, that your vices are getting stronger and stronger, because with Mars in the 8th house, there could just feel to be this this loss of control, or you feeling really powerless over life, looking for something that you can escape or like run from it. And with Mars retrograde, really important to review how it is that you've been exerting your energy and where it is that you are finding your power. Like, I do want you to welcome in these changes and transformations at this time. There's no use fighting it, and it just feels like you're being asked to flow instead of force. And as frustrating as that can be, you just need to let things be as they are. It's not the time to fight. It's not the time to avoid or ignore. Face things head on, do what you can, and allow yourself to be supported by others. Like, that's also part of Mars retrograde in the 8th house, interestingly, because 8th house is support from others, as I highlighted. And beyond just fighting with spouses and things of that nature, it can also be a time where it's like you've been running around trying to do all of these things. Maybe there's a way that you can try easy. Like, maybe there's a way you can generate some sort of passive income so you could free up more of your energy. Not the time I would launch it, but definitely look at the money that's coming in from others to support you, whether it's like investments, passive income, and see how you can tweak it in order to make it as sustainable as possible. Because with Mars retrograde, it's making you look at your energy, it's making you look at your anger, it's making you look at your impulses, and it's making you look at your intimacy, truly. If you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini within your 9th house, this reading is for you. You may potentially be a Libra ascendant, not always though, so I want you to go by the house or houses of where you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini. Okay, so the nice thing is this is a fellow air sign, so there is a little bit of support here, but for you, there could be a little bit of grass is greener. There's a little bit of grass is greener. You can have this energy around, wouldn't it be better if we did this? Or we did this, or we traveled here and there, without looking at where it is that you physically are at this moment, grounding yourself down. Because with Mars retrograde, like within this sector, you can be sort of having shiny object syndrome around the big picture, around should I just sell it all and go to Bali, or like just should I run away from it all and let's book a trip to France. Like, there could be a desire to want to sort of like numb out or escape from your day-to-day because it's squaring Neptune, which is most likely in your 6th house. If this is concentrated in your 9th, like there's sort of a desire where you don't want to deal with your responsibilities and your obligations. So you're almost just like idealizing these travels or this vision for your life. And it's not that it's a bad thing, but just with Mars retrograde, important to have gratitude within the present moment and to realize that, you know, not all that glitters is gold. Like, this isn't the time that I would impulsively book a trip or something just because you're so bored of your daily life, because you could get there and be like, okay, this is fun, but like wherever you go, there you are, okay? And for you with Mars retrograde, I would definitely double check all of your travel stuff. If you are in higher education, definitely like plan ahead, try not to procrastinate. Like, this can be a time that there can be certain delays and frustrations. There can be, quite honestly, more conflict, whether it's like at the university, with people that you are traveling with, people within your religion, spiritual leaders, things of the nature. If you are someone where you've been putting a lot of energy into your religion and your spirituality and not as much like into your daily reality, like Mars retrograde will make you look at that, because it's not that 9th house is a bad house. Like, having something to believe in, having faith, having a higher vision for our life is beautiful. But if you're someone where it's like you've been buying reading after reading and like listening to readings rather than living life, Mars retrograde might review how it is that you've been exerting your energy and like if that's working for you. It's great to be interested in something and deepened by it, but with Mars retrograde, like a lot of us, it's bringing to the surface that we don't have time for it all. And with you having Saturn in your 5th house, you're really being asked to get really good at a hobby or at a craft, or at something that you enjoy. Like with Saturn in the 5th house, sometimes, you know, our hobbies can change because it's the energy of work in our house of fun. So sometimes people, you know, start earning money from a hobby, or things that used to be fun, partying all the time. It's like they had to get responsible and diligent and they don't have the energy for that any longer. Like, with this connecting with that, maybe like in this desire to perfect this craft or to perfect this craft or to build this new hobby, maybe there's less energy that you can give to, you know, just pinning beautiful travel destinations on Pinterest or reading all the astrological readings. Like, maybe it's time to start doing. And I'm not saying click off this video. I mean, unless you want to, but I'm just saying That'll only be for a couple of people, but I just want you to address what's real, what's practical, what's here, what's in front of me, rather than always just thinking, I'd be so much happier if I was somewhere else doing something else. For some of you, like I highlighted, this can bring up certain themes when it comes to religious figures, things of the nature. Some of you could be rethinking your religious beliefs, quite honestly, your spiritual beliefs during this influence. You could be rethinking, if you do work within this sector, you could be rethinking how it is that you get your message out with Mars and Gemini in this area, and really lean into this introspective energy. So if you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini within your 10th house, this reading is for you. You may potentially be a Virgo rising, not always though, so make sure to go by the reading of which house or houses you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini. Okay. So I told all the other mutables this, so I'm going to tell you this too, and I know not everybody listening to this reading will be mutable, but some of you will be. And by mutable, I mean Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces. You need to do less. You need to do less. You need to do less. I'm going to say it one more time. You need to do less. If you have mutable on the angles, this is going to bring to the surface how unsustainable your workload has been. And for you, you've been doing too much when it comes to your career. You have been hustling and doing a gazillion things. And with Mars retrograde, it's really going to make you look at your projects and be like, okay, what generally is lighting us up? What generally are we still mentally interested in? So you have Gemini within your 10th house. So you can do multiple things, typically. But during this time, it could be very unsustainable. And when you're trying to do it all, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to be hit with certain delays and certain blockages, and it's not going to go well for you. And I want you to pay attention to which projects and initiatives no longer feel resonant, no longer have your mental engagement, because that's really how Mars and Gemini works. It's motivated by what it's mentally interested in. And for some of you, you may have Virgo rising, so it's like you try to do it all and be perfect. And you likely have Neptune in the 7th house, so it's like you've been trying to project this certain aura or this certain energy around, I've got it all together. You can count on me. And you can't do it all. Even if you have Gemini in the 10th, you cannot be it all and do it all. And especially if you don't have time for like what mentally interests you, because you're doing all of these projects and all of these things for other people, do less. Try easy. If there's certain projects or initiatives that no longer feel resonant, be okay with letting some people down. You cannot do it all. And like where your energy is being concentrated at this time, this kind of speaks to beyond just this Mars retrograde, but you're being asked to focus to the big picture of your world, the big picture projects. And a lot of you are getting caught up in busyness, whether it's within your own business or within your job. It's like you're going. And with Mars retrograde, that motivation you typically have, that drive you typically have, it's weirdly, it's going to feel like you're running on E, and you're going to be like, what is going on? I usually love doing this particular task. And it's like this Mars retrograde is trying to show you that it's not sustainable to be working every single day, working till 3 a.m. For some of you who do have a boss, there can be conflicts with the boss, or certain simmering tensions coming to the surface during this influence, hearing from a boss or authority figure from the past. What I want you to do is I want you to look at your energy that you expend at work. I want you to literally start paying attention to how your energy and time is being utilized. Because a lot of times when this happens, people report this feeling around, well, if I was only more structured and if I only had more strategy, then I would get it done. I was on my phone for 10 minutes and that's why I didn't get everything done. And yes, for some of us, we can have a lack of motivation and just be in la la land. That's a certainty with Neptune on an angle. But start writing down everything that you do in a day. And you would be shocked when you look at that list and you're like, wait, I did that and that and that. Like for some of us, it's not always needing to get more organized. It's like literally you need less off your plate. And Mars retrograde in the 10th can be a burnout transit, and I don't want it to get to that level for you. I want you to observe where your energy lights up, certain projects, like certain ways that you engage with the public where it's like, yes, this feels good. And then for certain projects and things that you do where it's just like you feel drained, note that as data, write that down, pay attention. That's what Mars retrograde is trying to show you. Because by the end of it, I'm just saying there's going to be certain projects or tasks or jobs that are no longer going to feel in alignment, and that's good. This is like a cleanup within the sector, looking at where it is that you've been overexerting yourself, over pushing yourself. For some of you, it can be energy to sort of review how you do things. Like if you've been consistently doing something the hard way. Maybe you can look at it around, okay, do I need to outsource? There's software that can trim this up for me. Look at how you can do less, okay? Rather than promise more, do less. And not the time I would take on a new contract or a job. With Neptune in the 7th house, your interviewer could be trying to tell you everything that you want to hear. And with Mars retrograde, your burnout could be, you know, speaking louder than your logic. Like, I don't want to take it away from you that, you know, during this influence, you could be feeling drained. Like you're being asked to work very hard. I don't want you to just take any offer that comes up because you're just so drained. You just physically can't take it anymore. See what you can do to clean up and to organize and to streamline your current position before jumping into something new. Because let me tell you right now, the grass is not always greener.
I also want to note that if you are a business owner, this can be a really aligned time to reflect on how it is you really want to be seen, and if your offers reflect your truths, branding and marketing that you want to make sure to echo out. This isn't a time that I would debut brand new projects, but if there are projects that you've launched where it's like, there are little things that need to be refined and redone, and you really need to put your muscle in it and work on it, this can be an aligned time to finish off those projects. Retrograde always favors anything that starts with the prefix re, so reread, review, recalibrate, whatever have you, and particularly looking at the offerings to the public, and furthermore, the version of yourself that you project into the public, as well as tweaking if certain offers don't feel aligned to you any longer. If there was an element to your business that is draining you, it's not giving you what it is that you are putting into it. Really optimal time to look at your energy, the energy you put into your business, the energy that you want to give your clients, and streamline and fix and rework accordingly. If there are certain projects in the past that could come up during this time, bosses from the past could always come back during this time, but really look to tie up loose ends, streamline, and communicate your truest essence to your audience.
If you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini within your 11th house of your astrological natal chart, this reading is for you. You may potentially be a Leo rising, not always though, so I want you to go by the reading of which house or houses you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini. All right, let's chat. So for you, you are looking at your friendships and you're looking at your hopes and dreams for the future. Some of you can have friends from the past return, okay? And if these friends from the past return, I'm not saying run off into their arms, into the sunset. For some, this can be happy reunion energy. For some, it can be like past beef that you need to like handle with them, or conflicts that you need to handle with them, or running into a friend that you had a really bad falling out with, or seeing them on social media. Like, it's not the most harmonious influence. For some, it definitely can be. Like, you do have Saturn in the 7th house, so you really are looking at your connections through this lens of, you know, who really is going to have my long-term interests in mind? Who do I really see going the distance with? And if that's a friendship from the past that returns during this time, it's like, okay, we had this issue. Let's work this out head on. Let's communicate. Mars answering to Mercury, and maybe we can sort of address the past beef and move forward. Because with Saturn in the 7th house, it's like you're really looking at your connections through the lens of who is it that's going to stand the test of time with me. And so, not everyone though, like with Mars retrograde in the 11th house, some people could be telling you what you want to hear. Some people could have an angle, unfortunately. So it's like you hear from a friend you haven't talked to in 8 years and it's all great. And then all of a sudden they're like, so I saw that you're working at that cool new company. Could you pass my cover letter? And you're like, bummer. For some of you, this can be a reconnection with a coworker from the past, colleague from the past. There definitely is a call around reviewing connections from the past, as well as if there are certain friendships, if they're serving you. Pay attention to your energy levels when you hang out with friends during this time. Do you feel invigorated and excited for the future, or do you feel drained? Note that as data. Write that in your journal. Pay attention. And if you find that you are doing more, you are giving more to your friendships than you feel like you are receiving, note that as data. This is an important time for you to be discerning about those sort of things. And like quality is more important than quantity within your relationships. And Mars is trying to make you look at how it is that the people that you surround yourself with are impacting you like to an energetic level. For some of you, you can have certain impulsive blow-ups with a connection or something of the nature. I don't want you to demonize that. Like obviously I don't want you to yell at anybody, but with Mars retrograde, it is making you look at your friendships, honestly. And like if there are certain simmering tensions that come out during this influence, like I said, with Saturn in 7th house, you're being asked to really, really think long term. So it's like people can show their true colors during this influence, and that's not a bad thing. Like the cosmos is trying to show that to you. And 11th house also has to do with large audiences. So you can find that you're more reactive when it comes to social media or anything of that nature. So just important to be mindful of that. You know, and I would also just look at if you are trying to keep up with the Joneses with Mars in the 11th house, like if you putting a lot of energy into projecting this sort of image so that people see you in a certain way, this could be making you look at like, okay, is it more important that people see you in a Porsche or that you have like the finances to afford a Porsche? Not saying this is a money transit for you, but I just want you to be cognizant of that, just because Mars retrograde is going to make you look at what energy are you exerting to project a certain way to other people, to keep up with the Joneses to other people. Like I want you to really look at that, as well as like how it is that you energetically feel in connections. Like, do I enjoy grabbing brunch with this person, or do I enjoy just having someone that I can post on Sunday mornings that I'm having brunch with so I don't feel like a weirdo? Like really pay attention to your energy within your connections. And this is also the sector of long-term hopes and dreams. So I also want you to look at, am I exerting energy towards what it is that I want for my future? And this isn't the time I would take on more things, okay? So if you're like, oh wait, I did want to be a pianist, I need to practice my piano every single day. It's not saying I would take it on. If it is a hobby from the past, but a dream for the future, that could be a great time to take it on. But I do want you to observe around, why am I chasing all these ideals or projecting a certain lifestyle when I don't even want this? Like with Mars retrograde, there can be a certain thing where it's like, why am I doing this? This isn't even my dream. Let me call my energy back. Like I want you to look at what you energetically, what it is that you put your energy into, and if it is going to get you to where you want to go. 11th house is our hopes and dreams for the future. So it's like, why am I burning myself out being a paralegal when I want to be a doctor? I don't know, weird example, but basically I want you to look at that. And it's not that I would apply for new jobs or anything of nature, but start to brainstorm. How can I put my energy towards getting in the rooms of the people that I want to be inspired by, the jobs that I would want for my future? I want you to really pay attention to that. And I also want to highlight that 11th house has to do with humanitarian matters. So a lot of you can be feeling a lot of rage. Understandably, a lot is going on. A lot of you can be feeling absolute rage when it comes to what is happening to humanity or like to other individuals. And with Mars retrograde, it can be making you look at, okay, how is it that I'm going to put my energy towards helping these causes? For some of you, if you've been burnt out on a nonprofit or doing all of these things, you might find you're gonna feel extra burnt out or a lack of motivation. It's like your desire and your intention is true, but you can find during this time you just don't have the physical energy to give to every single thing. And it's okay to give to yourself as well, particularly during this time. And in fact, it's going to help your hopes and dreams and your humanitarian goals more if you show up when you are feeling full. If you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini located within the 12th house of your astrological natal chart, you may potentially be a Cancer rising, not always though. So I want you to go by the house or houses of where you have 8 to 25 degrees Gemini. Okay, so here's the thing. This is Sleep City. This is sleepy. This is sleepy girl. Sleepy girl, fall and winter. Okay, this is tired. This is tired energy. Because 12th house is the hidden house. Mars is our energy. You might be like so drained during this time and you're like, what the heck? Why am I so exhausted? And the cosmos are to blame. And again, it's not blaming. It's not that the astrology creates these circumstances. It just reflects what's happening. But I do want to let you know you could feel more exhausted, and that's not a bad thing. Take this beat to surrender, to rest, to rejuvenate yourself, to be able to sort of maybe put energy back into yourself, like spiritually, or back into your healing. You don't need to do it all. be okay with saying no, be okay with cutting back. It's okay to have boundaries, and this transit is really gonna bring that to the surface. If you've been hustling and burning yourself out, like, you deserve rest and relaxation without guilt too. I feel like a lot of you are gonna be guilt tripping yourself mentally if you do find that you want more rest or that you're not feeling as inclined towards this project. Like, I really want you to understand that the cosmos are aligning for you to be able to take this beat, to realize where it is that you are drawing motivation. Like, 12th house is sort of what's hidden within our world. And with Mars retrograde, it could sort of be this dark, like this deep time around looking at, okay, what is it that I'm really motivated by? Is it burnout, or am I just no longer motivated by this role? Interesting things happen when we slow down, and that's why Mars retrograde isn't a bad thing and we shouldn't demonize it. It's like when we're so caught up in the hustle and gotta do, we don't necessarily pick up on the big picture things, on things that are sort of trying to whisper to us. Like, our intuition is the most accurate voice possible, but it's soft. It speaks very softly, and we can hide from it when we're so busy doing all the things. This Mars retrograde, you can't hide. Like, your intuition is telling you something, and you might carve more space to be able to dial it into it, to prioritize sort of like your healing and your spiritual connection and all of these things. As well as if you are someone who has like rage problems or has a lot of anger, this can be a very healing influence around looking at, okay, where did this tendency come from? Like, where's this anger coming from? How can I support myself in being able to deal with this anger more constructively? So I want you to lean into this pause, my love. You are not flawed. You are not too tired. Like, I want you to really lean into this opportunity to come inward, to rest, to recalibrate, and you will feel renewed when Mars crosses your ascendant into your first house. There will be this energy around, now that you've gained clarity, like internally within your subconscious processes, now that you've closed out chapters, now that you've looked at your impulses, how it is that you deal with them, you should feel this invigorating feeling. And I do want to say 12th house is self-undoing. So for some of you, your impulses or your anger can be something that you've been using to self-sabotage. And I want you to look at that. I want you to be introspective about that. So this should be an interesting transit around reviewing our motivations, reviewing our anger, how it is that we express it, our advocacy, how it is that we advocate for ourselves. Do let me know what you're looking forward to, what you're not looking forward to below. I want to give another thank you to Crow Books for sponsoring this video. It is very appreciated. Make sure to pre-order per Henrik Gullfoss's new book, The Complete Book of Spiritual Astrology, via the link below. My Instagram handle is @Comet Astrology. My TikTok is the same. I would love to connect with you over there. And until we meet again, drink lots of water and stay cosmic.